This is the plaintiff, Cheeto Pepler. He says he was falsely arrested because the defendant lied to the police about him trespassing in her coffee shop twice. He had to spend all kinds of money defending himself in court. The charges were dropped, and he's suing for the $7,000 he's now out. This is the defendant, Christy Kachi. She says the plaintiff was taking pictures of her female employees, making them very uncomfortable, so she called the police. He then came back a second time, refused to leave, and the cops arrested him. She followed corporate procedures and owes this man nothing. She's accused of filing a false report.
All parties, please raise your right hand. People's Court is now in session, and the Honorable Judge Marilyn Leon is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Pepler, you're suing for $7,000 in damages as a result of an incident that happened at Marilou's Coffee. Tell me your version. What occurred?
On July the 3rd of last year, I visited Marilou's Coffee Shop in Rockland, Massachusetts. And upon entering, I spoke to the two baristas behind the counter and asked if it was okay for me to take a photo for Google Street View. They gave consent. And when I took the photos, I took two photos. I showed it to them. They liked it. Then I went to sit down.
So when you take pictures, what do? Like you sell it to them, or how does that work? Or you just upload it?
We're non-paid. We're hobbyists. We're Street View photographers. We use their Google Street View app. It tells us places that need it. Typically, it's wherever we are located at that time. We ask permission. And I always send the link to the corporate manager. If they don't like it, we can delete it.
Okay, so you ask the baristas, can I take a picture? And they say yes. Then what happens?
I went to sit down. A few minutes later, a manager came to me, and she introduced herself as a corporate manager who just happened to be in town. And she asked me why I didn't ask permission ahead of time, like a day in advance. And I told her that I didn't know I was going to be there. I'm a truck driver. I was actually picking up a trailer across the street, and this was my first time at Marilou's. And the app said it needed a street view, and
Okay, so she asked you, why isn't this something that was arranged in advance? And you tell her, because that's not how this works. And then what happens?
I showed her the picture, and I gave her my business card with my phone and email, and said, if you object, I'm happy to delete the photo. And as I mentioned, they can delete it too, but it'll be easier for me to do it.
Do you remember the name of the manager that you saw? Like, for example, the person who's up there right now, Ms. Kochi, were you the one who he dealt with on July 3rd?
Yes. I was in the store at that time.
Okay. All right. So this happens, and then do you end up calling the police or anything on July 3rd?
Yes. So what happened was he gave me the card. I did ask him to leave. He left. And after he left, I called the police because his business card didn't match up with what he was saying. So I just wanted to make the police aware of the situation that happened. That's all.
Okay, but what was the situation that happened? He asked permission, he took a picture of two baristas, and that was the situation. So what really was the situation from your perspective on July 3rd?
So he was in the store taking pictures. The employees felt uncomfortable. And something that we don't really allow in the store. And then he was still in the store, so we asked him to leave to make our employees feel more comfortable.
Is this the picture?
Yes, that's one of the pictures.
Okay, honestly, they don't look that uncomfortable, but okay. They're telling you that they're uncomfortable, or you're just kind of uncomfortable with the pictures or whatever? And
Nope, they told me they were uncomfortable. I think they were caught off guard.
Yeah, I understand. I know what you mean by getting caught off guard or whatever, and agreeing to do it, and then later feeling like that was creepy. But whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, he asked permission, they posed, he took a picture, and then you said, you know what, you got to go. Did he say, no, I'm not leaving, or did he just leave?
He just left.
Okay. So now fast forward to the day in question, Mr. Pepler. The day that everything really hits the fan is what? July what?
The 12th. And
Okay.
like I
And
said,
what
I'm a
happens on
truck
July
driver.
12th?
I was back in Rockland to return the trailer. It took me a week to Casey's Movers, and I was actually hungry. So I liked the coffee shop, and I liked the decor, and I went across the street to get me something to eat and drink. Um, when I entered, the manager that was working, I had never met her before, so out of courtesy, I showed her the photo. Didn't think too much about it. She didn't object to it, and she took my order. And when I sat down, I took one bite of my sandwich, and I saw 3 police officers enter. Didn't think they were called for me, but they approached me, and they were pretty aggressive.
Okay. So all that happened the second time is you went back to a store where they had asked you to leave for taking a picture the first time. You walked up to the baristas, you showed them the picture of the other baristas, and then you ordered lunch. That's it.
That's correct.
Okay. You were not actually there, Ms. Kochi, on the second day, on July 12th, correct?
No, Caitlin was. I have a witness.
Okay, perfect. Douglas, will you please swear her in? Raise your
Absolutely.
right hand, Caitlin.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
Ms. Sneed, what is your version of what happened on July 12th?
So when he came in, the girl that was working with me was like, "That's the man who was here that took a picture." She got all shaky, really uncomfortable. So I called Christy, the one who was there on the 3rd, just kind of like, what should I do? I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. So she said, call the police. We have asked him to leave in the past, so call the police and they can help you. So after he ordered his food, he walked over to this counter that we have, and he set up his computer or whatever, and then he put something on the counter, like almost facing where we were working, which I thought was very strange.
What was the something?
It looked like a camera, but I didn't really know what it was. I didn't really ask. I just thought it was the strangest thing ever.
And you had testified that it was a phone. Are you now no longer sure it was a phone?
It looked like a phone or like a camera. It had a camera on it, that I do know. The camera was definitely facing me.
All right. So, and it's just sitting there, and then he goes to sit somewhere else?
Yeah, he sits on the other side of the store.
All right, and then leaves that object there, and then does he sit and eat, or does he do something else?
He just sits down, and I don't know why. I don't know. It was just the way why he set something up on the counter like that. Facing me just freaked me out. That's just, no one records anything in that place.
All right, so you call your manager. She says call the police, and you call the police, correct?
Yes.
All right, so the police get there. Mr. Pepler, let me hand the floor to you. What happens when the police get there?
They asked me if I was taking pictures, and I said,
Okay.
no, not today. I took a couple pictures a week ago, and they asked me, was this the second time that they were called on me? And I said, no, not at all. And this is actually, I'm kind of surprised you're here. No one told me that Mary Louise had called the police on me on July the 3rd. I don't get why they would.
It sounds like they
I
called
left.
after you left, just to record the incident, is what she's saying. But let me ask you this. Did you put something on the counter, in the pastry counter, that was a camera?
Yes, I did. I set it there
What'd you
for
put?
about, it's my 360 camera. It's very small. It's about the size of an iPhone. And it was only there for about 10 to 15 seconds. I didn't take a picture. I just set it there.
What'd you do
walked
with
to the
it?
pastry.
You set it there for what reason?
Well, one thing, I looked at the pastry counter. I thought about taking a picture. I mean, no one ever told me I couldn't take a photo on July the 3rd. The only issue that was brought up to me was why I didn't call a day in advance. And as I said, if you don't like the photo, I can delete it, and you have my contact.
Right.
So
Did Miss Kochi ask you to get out on the 3rd?
she did. Well, she said she was very nonchalant about it. She said, we would prefer it if you left. I thought that was kind of perplexing because she didn't give a reason.
So they ask you to
and
leave, and then what you do is come back a week later, and you put a camera-taking device pointed at the women working there, and you leave it there, according to you, for 15, 20 seconds. According to you, Ms. Sneed, how long did he leave it for?
I didn't even know he picked it back up, to be honest with you.
Do you remember how long you saw it there, or once you saw it, you kind of
once I saw it there, I got a little freaked out.
Okay. So the police come, and what do the police say to you?
Well, the
Mr.
main
Pepperly?
question was that they were under the impression that this was the second time that they were called on me, and I returned to harass them, which obviously is not the case because I came there to get breakfast. And like I said,
To the place where you had been
when-
asked to leave. Because that's kind of awkward. If the place asked me to leave, I probably wouldn't go back. So you came back to get breakfast, and that's fine. So you tell the police, look, I'm back here to have breakfast. And then what happens?
And then they said they want to see my ID card. I told them my name, and I showed them the photo, that 360 photo. So you see the name and the picture of me.
Right. And
So
then the
it's obvious
police
who
said,
I
show
am.
me your ID. And what did you say?
Well, I don't have my driver's license on me, so I keep it in the truck.
Is that what
so
you
it
told
won't
the
get lost.
police?
Well, I asked the police if I could leave, which they refused. I told the police that I know my rights. I don't have to show you my ID because there's no probable cause I did anything wrong, and I know that Massachusetts is not a stop and ID state. And I said, why do you need to see my ID? And that's when they decided just to arrest me.
Okay. Now, what is the police version of what happened? That you did what that made them pin you down? That you took like a furtive movement past their sergeant and then they decided to pin you down, correct? That's what they say in the report, something like that. Right.
They may have said that, but I don't see how that could be. There were 3 of them.
No, I
I did
understand.
ask-
I understand. So you end up getting arrested for what?
Disturbing the peace, witness intimidation, and disorderly conduct. All was dropped except disturbing the peace.
Okay. And then you actually had a trial on disturbing the peace, correct?
That's correct. 3 months later.
And you won the trial. The judge found you not guilty.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, you are coming after Mary Lou's Coffee for $7,000 because what? How are you out $7,000 and why should they? And then the next question is going to be why should they pay you that? But how are you out $7,000?
First of all, this whole thing could have been prevented. Simply all the manager had to do was talk to me. On July the 12th, quite frankly, no one ever told me I can't come back. I didn't even think about the fact on July the 3rd that she asked me to leave. That's, I liked the place. I was hungry.
Does that
and I
happen a
wanted
lot
some-
to you that people ask you to leave because you took a picture of their baristas? Does that happen a lot that people ask you to leave because you took
No.
a picture of the women working there? Right.
No, that's
Then
never happened to me.
It should stay in your head. It should kind of stay in your head. But how are you out $7,000?
Well, that's how much it cost me to drive up there. Quite frankly, I had to drive all the way back, and I had to make that trip twice.
Oh, that's for showing up for court for your criminal charges. That's what you mean.
Correct. On
I
the
got it.
arraignment
Okay.
on Monday,
And then 1,000 in emotional distress and 1,000 in defamation of character. So now is my follow-up question, why does Mary Lou's have to pay you all that? Let's assume for a moment you're really out 7,000 for all this. Why is that Mary Lou's fault?
for one thing, there was no need to call 911. This was a non-emergency. If the manager had any issues, all they had to do was talk to me and ask me to leave or ask questions, and I would have been happy to. The fact that they insisted on a letter of no trespass, this does not warrant a letter of no trespass.
But
Pictures
why
are
is that
taken
up to you to decide? Ms. Kochi, does this warrant a letter of no trespass? You're the head of security there?
Yes.
Is this a privately owned restaurant?
Yes.
Okay, so who are you to decide whether or not they don't want you there? It's a privately owned place. Unless they're
Well, that would be
violating some law by asking you to leave. You know,
That would
look,
be
I
discrimination.
agree. I get why you felt like the cops had no reason to make such a big deal. But you understand that who was really making the big deal here, right? It was you. Because if you want to stand by your principles and not give the cops your ID, that's great. But there's a saying among the cops, you can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. And that is exactly what you ended up succumbing to by not showing them your license, taking the stay away order, and walking on your merry way. If you'd done that, nobody would have arrested you for disorderly. Now, let me be clear. If you had been arrested for disorderly and your trial came in front of me, I also would find you not guilty. I agree with you. That was not disorderly. That's what we call contempt of cop, that you're not being respectful to the police, and they don't like it. I get it, all right? But you explain to me how that means Mary Lou's has to pay you $7 grand when you're a guy walking in there for the second time, taking pictures. After the first time you took a picture, the manager told you to leave. What did Mary Lou's do wrong? Call the cops? Everybody has a right to call the cops. They don't have to be right in the end. They have a right to call the cops. That's what we pay taxes for. If she feels uncomfortable, she calls the cops, and the cops sort it out. You got arrested for disorderly because of the interaction between you and the cops and the direction it took, right or wrong. Why aren't you suing the cops if you feel you should make money? Why would it ever be anyone at Mary Lou's fault for being creeped out that you put a camera facing the women working there, who after a manager had told you, stop doing that? Why is it there?
The camera was not facing anybody, Your Honor. I just placed it there. Actually, I was trying to take a photo of the Danish that was in the Danish counter.
I thought you said you didn't take a photo. I thought you just had it there.
I did not take a photo. But I thought about it because I like the Danish.
Oh, you
but
thought
no one
about
ever
taking a
told
photo,
me.
and that's why it's sitting there pointing right at the women. All right, let me tell you something. First of all, if you want my 2 cents, it's creepy as hell. And I think you were trying to take a picture of the women after the manager had already told you not to. Okay? Now, maybe it's a free country, and this is open to the public, and he felt like taking a picture of you. And if you don't like it, your remedy is to call the police and get a stay-away order because they don't like it. So they did exactly what the law allows them to do. And then you ended up making it a huge deal with the cops, which is why you and the cops had a problem. Go sue the cops, see where that gets you. But you know what isn't going to happen? They're not going to pay you $7,000. My verdict in this case is for the defendants.
Thank you.
So let's talk to Mr. Pepler. Sir, what do you think about the judge's decision?
I'm fine with it. I just think that the whole thing could have been prevented. All the manager had to do was talk to me because I really didn't think there was an issue and there was no need to call the police. I kind of wish Mary Lou's had called me because this happened in their turf. And if they really should have reached out to me and asked me and get my side of the story, which they failed to do. And if, quite frankly, they had done that, we wouldn't be here today.
Well, as the judge pointed out, it was your interaction with the police that caused you to be arrested, not hers. So that really was the cause of the problem. Have you been taking pictures like this all around the country?
Yes, I do. I take a lot of Google Street View photos, several hundred all over the country.
You've ever had a problem?
I never had an issue.
Ever had a problem like this before? Never. Let's talk to the defendant now and see how she feels about the outcome. What do you think, Ms. Chachi? He thinks if you hadn't have called the police, nothing would. He would have walked out if you asked him to.
We were just following company procedure.
All right. Do you feel bad at all about what happened to him, or not really?
I mean, we just want to make sure that our employees feel comfortable when they're working. So I'm sorry that happened, but it's what happened.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You prevailed in the lawsuit. Let's see what the judges have to say about this case.
When you rendered your ruling in this case, you mentioned the time-honored principle of you can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. Okay, and that's
as
really
a son of 2 police officers, I'm sure you heard that all your life.
Absolutely, and it's funny because a private business like this, a restaurant, they can tell people no photos, don't shoot video, don't take photographs. They could send you out of the business, a restaurant.
It's not like he didn't know that they didn't want him to.
He already knew. He already knew
from the last. He may not know she called the police after he left, but he knew she didn't like it because she asked him to leave.
Right.
You know how that's always happening. How you're asked to leave a restaurant and you can't wait to get back there a week later to put a camera facing the women who are working there. You know how that's always happening. That camera wasn't on taking video, was it? Please.
Claudine wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, please help. I live in Virginia, need to get out of my lease because the upstairs neighbors make loud noise. They smoke marijuana, which makes me sick, and the smell of their cooking also makes me sick.
Come on, Claudine. I mean, these people have a right to live their life at a point. Now, if it's excessive, you do have a right to quiet enjoyment under the law, but quiet enjoyment means it has to be really excessive noise, or the smell has to be so noxious that it would make anybody sick. I think you're out of luck. That will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case inside the courtroom.